YouTube was on with it. It's your boys there. In this video, we got shocking news. Stop ducking and doing what Spence did to you. Bradley message to Terence Crawford about Boots. Let's get it.
Styles, you got one younger, one older, you got one calling the other one out, and he just won't mind. He doesn't mind seeing the fight, and I don't mind seeing the fight either at 147 or 54. I don't mind seeing that fight either,
What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, two-division world champion, Hall of Fame superstar, retired boxer, now colorful analyst for ESPN and Top Rank, and he's also an analyst on ProBox. Shout out to ProBox. And this is Timothy Desert Storm Bradley. And he's talking about a friend of his in Terence Bud Crawford facing off against what I refer to as the phenom, Jaron Boots Ennis. So you got the pound-for-pound king and the phenom. And Timothy Bradley, I have to correct him. Many people have sent this to me now, and they said I'm wrong, or they stated that, can I address what Timothy Bradley stated? Which is, Timothy Bradley states that Terence Crawford vacated his IBF International Boxing Federation title to avoid a fight with Jaron Boots Ennis and moved up in weight. That's completely incorrect.
Nah, that's false because Boots was Bud's mandatory, obviously, but Bud had an instant rematch clause, meaning he couldn't fight his mandatory because he thought him and Errol Spence was going to rematch instantly. But because it's a rematch clause, you can't fight mandatories if you get a rematch clause. So there was no ducking involved. If there was no rematch clause, Bud would have fought Boots with no hesitation.
Okay, and he's essentially saying that Terence Crawford is avoiding a fight with Jaron Boots Ennis. But let's just listen to what he had to say, shall we?
Because they're similar in a lot of ways. And let's talk about. Do you still want to see the fight of these guys get in the ring? Yeah, why not? Why not get it on? But let's talk about how he got his belt. Let's talk about that.
Now, what you're gonna hear is Tim Bradley state. Now you heard what he said. He said, let's talk about how Jaron Boots Ennis, the phenom who just stopped David Avanesian in the 5th round of their fight this past Saturday, in his debut for Matchroom and Matchroom CEO promoter Eddie Hearn in DAZN, and a homecoming fight, right, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, at the Wells Fargo Arena where the 76ers play. He defended his IBF title, and now he's going to say, let's talk about how Jaron Boots Ennis received the IBF title, right? So let's listen to this, and then we're going to react to it.
How did he get his belt? Well, Terence Crawford was the undisputed champion, right?
Right.
But Crawford didn't want to, I guess they didn't want to negotiate with Boots.
Now let's stop right there. He said Crawford didn't want to negotiate with Jaron Boots Ennis. That's not true, Tim. And Tim is my guy. He knows this. That's not true. You are forgetting that Terence Crawford was contractually obligated
To a rematch.
to fulfill a rematch
Facts.
with Errol Spence, and Terence Crawford was waiting for the details for the rematch with Errol Spence. He was not in a position to face off against Jaron Boots Ennis or negotiate with Jaron Boots Ennis because he was contractually obligated to rematch Errol Spence, who immediately, upon losing and being stopped by Terence Crawford in the 9th round, petitioned to have the rematch. So Terence Crawford hands were tied. That's number one. Number two, Errol Spence held the IBF title since 2017 for 6 years. He had one mandatory defense the entire time, which was against Carlos Ocampo. Okay? He defended against his mandatory one time in 6 years.
Everybody got to eat, man.
Jaron Boots Ennis chose to go the route of the IBF. He could have went the route of the WBO and became Terence Crawford mandatory. They went the route of the IBF to become the IBF mandatory for Errol Spence. He was Errol Spence's mandatory for over a year, and Errol Spence didn't defend it. Terence Crawford inherited Jaron Boots Ennis as his mandatory challenger after stopping and beating Errol Spence. Okay? And just 2 months after beating Errol Spence, the IBF gave him an ultimatum, which they knew he could not fulfill, and they stripped him of the IBF title.
Yeah, dirty. It's dirty how they did Bud, man. Hey, we know you got a rematch, Bud, but we don't care about that. Hey, that's what you gonna do, young blood. You gonna fight Boots or else. Give me that belt, boy. That's exactly how they did Terrence, bro. He couldn't do shit.
Did not vacate it, and he did not drop the belt. He was stripped after only 2 months. Errol Spence held the belt for 6 years with one title defense against a mandatory, which was Carlos Ocampo. Terence Crawford held the belt for 2 months and was stripped. That's the difference, Tim. Let's keep listening.
You know, Boots has been after Crawford for some time now. He wants all.
That is true. But his promoter and the network were not willing to make the fight. I know that personally. Jaron Boots Ennis wants to fight. His father, trainer, manager, Boots Ennis wants to fight. But the networks and the promoter did not. That's why they didn't pursue it. And hence the reason why he was advised to go the IBF route. Errol Spence was on the quote-unquote same side of the street with more belts and a bigger name.
That smoke, man, at the end of the day. You know, I don't understand how let me just say this. I don't understand how we're saying we want Benavidez and we want Canelo Alvarez. We want Benavidez and Canelo Alvarez. Well, Crawford was at 147 at one point. Now he's at 54. However, why can't we get a Crawford and Boots Ennis? You know, when Crawford was undisputed champion, he could have fought against Boots Ennis.
No, he couldn't have. No, he couldn't.
No, he could not. He was only undisputed for 2 months, Tim. And then he was
And the rematch clause, he got
He
stripped.
was contractually obligated to fulfill a rematch that Errol Spence petitioned to have. He could not.
To me, it seems to me that Crawford is being just like Spence was to him. You know?
That's incorrect. I know this personally because I was the one in between that attempted to make the fight. Steven Espinosa of Showtime President of Sports, he stated that he was not willing to step on the toes of premier boxing champion founder advisor Al Heyman, the PBC, and Errol Spence, who was trying to make a fight with Terence Crawford. And so, because they couldn't come to an agreement, he was not going to be the one to step on Errol Spence and Al Heyman's toes and make a fight. Because remember, Boots Ennis was signed to Showtime, not to the PBC, and Cameron Duncan, the late Cameron Duncan. Okay? He was signed to Showtime and Cameron Duncan. Steven Espinosa said they had no dates to make a fight with Terence Crawford. And they were focusing on a fight with Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. Go look at the interview on Aki TV where Skip, shouts out to Skip, he interviewed Steven Espinosa, and Steven Espinosa admitted this. I wasn't going to step on their toes. So he could not fight him then. And then once he signed the contract to fight Errol Spence, he was contractually obligated to rematch Errol Spence. So, Tim, you're wrong there.
When Crawford moved up to 147, Spence said, get a belt. Crawford got a belt. He's like, okay, what's this use now? You know, what you need me to do? Well, you ain't fought anybody.
That's entirely two different situations. That was Terence Crawford's first fight at 147 pounds after he beat Jeff Horn and became the WBO champion. This is not Jaron Boots Ennis' first fight at welterweight, number one. Number two, they had an opportunity to make the fight, and they didn't want to make the fight. That being Espinosa and Cameron Duncan, okay? That's number two. And number three, Terence Crawford was only the champion, undisputed champion for 2 months. Errol Spence was the IBF champion for 6 years. It's a completely different scenario. And Errol Spence couldn't get the other champions to unify, particularly Keith Thurman.
Hearing the same excuses coming from the Crawford team, you know, the way he did it with Spence, the same thing Spence did to him at the end of the day.
It's not the same
Is he
thing.
ready for a Crawford? Boots Ennis? Right now.
Is he ready for Terence Crawford? I would say yes, like Timothy Bradley. Yes, he has all the tools, all the skills, all the makeup, the power, the hand speed, the ring IQ, the commitment to the sport. Yes, I agree. He is ready.
For Terence Crawford. I'm telling you.
Man, I'm tired of hearing all this rah-rah, bro. At the end of the day, man, if Boots wants the Terence Crawford fight, bro, it's simple, bro. Move up to 154, force your IBF mandatory, because he's the IBF champion, so he can be the mandatory at 54 if he forced the mandatory. And take the belt, bro, because we know Bud want to be undisputed, so take a belt and get in his way of undisputed. You know, Bud is about to fight Madrimov for a belt, and if you really want to fight Bud, get in the way of him being undisputed, get in the way of his goal, become a thorn in his side, take one of the belts that he want, and make it hard on him to get undisputed, bro. And he gonna have to fight you. Either him or Spence or somebody gonna have to fight you. Ain't no ducking. And once you champion and you in a weight class, ain't no ducking, bro. So man, I'm gonna stop it right here, man. Look, YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. Share this to somebody who need to hear what we on the road to 2K. This is a longer video. Let me know if y'all like it, man. Till next time.